Bonjour or bonsoir, depending on when you are tuning in. Welcome to a new Sunday free French live class on this YouTube channel. If you are here, please say hi in the chat. And if you are watching the replay, you are welcome to use the comment section to ask any question that you have. This is a reminder that there now is a worksheet for every live class. And this worksheet is always available on my Telegram channel. So if you don't have it yet, you can join my Telegram channel. You will find the link in the description below, and then you will be able to download the worksheet and follow along. Even if you are watching the replay months from now, you will be able to access all the worksheets on the Telegram channel. So that's that. I see we have Omowaleyo here. Bonjour, welcome. And we have Connie here. Nice to have you back, Connie. And yeah, so the topic today is strategies to learn French vocabulary like a boss. And I'm super excited about this topic because it's one of the most important topics that we can think of when it comes to learning French. And we will just kill a couple of misconceptions today, which, yeah, you might have a couple of misconceptions about French vocabulary that are holding you back. So that's what we're going to speak about today. We have Doge here, bonjour, and Tina, welcome. It's so cool to have all of you guys here. Yeah, so if you have any question, the chat box is here for you. The content of this class is on purpose rather short. So I do repeat a lot, and I do have a lot of room set aside to answer your questions. So you can always bring any question to these live classes, even if it has nothing to do with the topic of the day. Typically, the questions that have nothing to do with the topic of the day, we keep them for at the end of the class, but it's set to typically run for 1 hour. It tends to run for 1 full hour every time because we do have questions. So yeah, first we go through the talking points that I have, which are, you have all the 7 of talking points on the worksheet, and you can ask any question about those talking points as I am talking. And then if you have other questions about any other topic that's related to learning French or the French language or French culture or really anything that I could answer, then we can have we can use the time that's left at the end of the class to answer this. So let's go for 7 secret strategies to learn French vocabulary like a boss. So the first thing, and I know it's super counterintuitive, and maybe you're going to resist this. I know I resisted it for a very long time, but the critical element is to learn as little vocabulary as possible. So that goes here, right? Learn as little vocabulary as possible. Now, I'm going to elaborate on that because, well, tell me if that's something you've heard before, that you should learn less vocabulary, or if you would rather have expected tricks to learn bigger amounts of vocabulary. And I mean, I could actually make a live class about how to learn bigger amounts of vocabulary. I could do that. Actually, tell me if that's something you're interested in. Naturally, I would not tend to do something like this because I have found in my coaching practice that everybody does a lot better when they learn less vocabulary. Oh, Linda is here. Hi, Linda. Welcome back. Yeah, so for example, I don't know if you know Tim Ferriss. He wrote this book that's a really important bestseller. It is called The 4-Hour Workweek. Many people know about this book. Many people have read this book. But few people know that he also had a situation where he had to learn Japanese. And, you know, English native speaker as an adult learning Japanese, that's really complicated. And he actually applied the same principle that he explains in this book, which is roughly the 80-20 Pareto principle that states that 20% of your efforts give you 80% of the results, or sometimes it's even more. And he applied the same principle to the Japanese language very successfully. So that's the same idea that's applied here. You need to really learn as little vocabulary as possible. Nancy is here. Hi, Nancy. Welcome. So the question remains, how do you know what words to learn? Because of course, if you learn as few words as possible, you cannot imagine just taking some random words and learning just a few and then it will work. Obviously, it doesn't work this way. You have to be selective. So how do you choose the vocabulary? Here's the golden rule to choose what vocabulary to learn. So you can write it down there. The golden rule is you hear it or you need it. So those are the 2 reasons why you should learn a vocabulary word. Either you hear it or and you hear it, I mean hear it all the time. If you if you do your daily French bath or your practice French or you listen to French, you'll never be able to learn French if you don't have a significant amount of French in your environment, so you should put as much French as you can in your environment, really. If you hear the same words or you see the same words in text over and over and over again, then you know that's one of the words that you have to learn. This is one of the ways that I successfully learned German when I was already in Austria. And this actually is the main reason why I failed at learning German for 10 years back when I was still in France, because I had no awareness what was an important word, what wasn't. So what I was doing is that I was holding as many German words as I could in my vocabulary notebook, and I was never able to actually learn them because I just had this like massive amount of words, and it was way too much. And I just didn't know which ones were useful and which ones were not. When I started just getting around to understanding which words are important and which words are not, then that was basically the one moment when it became possible at all for me to learn German. So I would love for you to actually share where you're at with French right now, and if you have the impression that there are too many words. Tell me if you have the impression that there are too many words to learn. I would love to know that. If you have any kind of issue with learning, remembering the vocabulary, remembering maybe the verbs, like we have spoken about verbs last week, so I'm not going to elaborate specifically on verbs right now. I just want to give you the strategies that I use to learn vocabulary. Of course, those strategies are useful for verbs as well. It's not different. By the way, later today we will elaborate on this PDF, which is called Vocabulary Magic, and it is part of the French Fluency Starter Kit. You also have a link in the description below to download this. Like, this is free. I will show it to you later today, but I just remembered I have to speak about that. So really, yes, find the words that are useful. And you know that because you hear them. So if you hear or you read the word over and over and over again, then you know you will need this word. And the other reason is if you need a word. So if you have to go to a shop and buy something and you need to ask for that thing, then you need to look up the word in the first place. Those are the only two reasons why you should learn a word, because you need it in conversation or in any kind of situation where you have to communicate or you hear it. So let's see, we have a couple of comments. Doge is saying, I'm at B2 and I'm trying to read Harry Potter, but I don't know at least a third of the words. So when you're at B2 or like the B1, B2 moment and on, that's when it actually becomes tricky with vocabulary, because you already have acquired the words that are really, really important. So arguably at your kind of level, this rule does not apply as much as it does before. Because yeah, that's the point where you're at, where you can learn a lot more vocabulary. And with something like Harry Potter, where everything is magical and everything is kind of out of the ordinary, you will have many words that are just not really daily words. But the rule of you hear it or you need it still applies. If you're reading Harry Potter and you keep seeing the same word over and over again, like, I don't know, cauldron, I don't know if they have cauldrons in Harry Potter. I haven't actually read it myself. But even if it's a word that is magical or that's just out of the ordinary, if they keep repeating the word in the same book, like if it's the third time that you see the same word, now it's a good time to look it up in the dictionary, because it's very likely that you will see it again. So I hope this helps. But yeah, if you're at B2, that's the moment when you will have more vocabulary to learn. I mean, or if you want to become better, because for example, I'm a B2 in German, and I'm not actually interested in growing my German beyond B2, because B2 is the level that I need to be able to live here. I don't actually work with German people. I don't give talks in German or something like that. And for me, it's not interesting to grow my German further. But if you want to grow your French beyond B2, then of course you will have a lot of vocabulary to learn. The good news is that you have plenty of time, because it's very rare for someone to be in a situation where they really need rapidly to be at a level above B2. Sometimes if you want to join a university, for example, or if you want to have a profession where they really want you to have a C1 certificate or to be completely fluent with no difficulty, then yes, that can happen, but it's rather rare. By the way, if you're in that kind of situation, I strongly recommend one-on-one coaching with me, because that's going to be the best way to have you grow your French as fast as possible. Otherwise, plenty of time, just enjoy it. That's like really the time when you can enjoy your growth and your progress in French. So Omowala is saying, oh yes, I usually find it hard to remember all the words I have learned. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, my entire point of this live class is to teach you the strategies that not only I have used for myself to learn, especially German, but also that I use with my clients to help them learn. And the first thing is really that you have to be very drastic, very very strategic with the words that you do learn. Like no word gets to live in your system. We'll speak about vocabulary learning system after that. No word gets to be in your system rank 3. Like no, there's it has to, if it's here, it has to have a certain job. So for example, if your vocabulary system, notebook or so on, we will speak about that later, was a farm, then the words would be the animals of a farm. Like when you think about a farm, no animal in the farm is useless. Like the cat gets to stay in the farm because they hunt mice. The dog gets to stay in the farm for safety because they keep the house. The chicken, they make eggs, or you can eat also the chicken. So you wouldn't put, say, snakes in your farm because one day you might want to learn to make snake skin handbag. That would be weird. Like if you had a farm and you were just running your farm as a farmer, and one day you think, oh yeah, maybe one day I want to learn to make snake handbags. You just buy the snakes at that moment. I know it's a really silly metaphor, but you get the idea. Like you can always learn the words when you need them later on. Really, my biggest mistake with German was that I just kept all the words that I could. I was afraid that I will never see those words again if I don't learn them now. Like they will be gone. And now that I am much older, much more mature, and I'm a French learning coach, I know that actually, if you never see those words again, good. It means they were useless in the first place. The only words that you want to learn are the words that are going to be useful for you now. So that's really important. Like if you find it hard to remember all the words, it's probably because you have too many words, or because you don't have a great system, which we'll speak again later. I'm just gonna read the other comments. Connie's saying my memory is really bad. I have to learn the same words over and over again. It's a process. That can very well be the case. I find that with memory, it tends to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you believe that your memory is bad, it's likely to really be bad. And if you believe that it's good, it's likely to really be good. However, some people just do have like more challenges with memory. That can be not really averted, but that can be made better by having a really solid system, which we will see in a moment. Also, I know that you're in the French Life Launchpad, so you probably know everything about the system because it's already in there. But yeah, by the way, if you have any questions about any of that or any of the things that I share now or what's in the course, you're welcome to ask the questions here as usual. Tina is saying she's just a beginner. Oh, I'm sorry for assuming the pronoun. They are just a beginner and they have a problem with the masculine and feminine. Ooh, I do have a video about masculine and feminine, which is really good. It's called How to Differentiate Between Masculine and Feminine Gender or something like that. There's a dog on the thumbnail. You can, if you type my name, Angel Pretot, masculine and feminine, you will find it. It's not very popular. I think it has 300 views right now, but it's really good video to learn the endings that are feminine and masculine. And thanks to knowing these endings, you'll be able to know not all the words, because that would be too good to be true, but I think 39,000 words. So yeah, that's worth just learning that video. That will give you a lot farther along with the gender. Tell me, by the way, if you'd like me to give a live class about gender, grammatical gender in French altogether. I could actually do that. That would be fun. So Doge is saying, thank you. You're welcome. Connie is saying, once you get to a certain level, can't you figure out what words mean from context? Maybe not the exact translation, but you can still read and enjoy the story. Yes, you can actually do that. That's a bit outside of the scope of what I'm saying today, but I might just answer the question while I've read it. I was actually having this discussion an hour ago with the last students that I had a session with today, because she's very advanced and she was reading a French book about the situation during World War I, which is very much out of the ordinary, of course, like a completely different life being described. And especially she was saying that adjectives were challenging for her because she didn't know so many adjectives in the book. And she was also saying that she was just underlining those words that she didn't know, but she didn't stop to look them up because she didn't need to, because they were just adjectives, and she could always infer from the context if they were positive or negative. That's actually a really interesting situation to be in, because it means that I'm lost my train of thought. Yeah, it means that basically you are at a certain point where you're so advanced that the new words that you don't know, and there could be many words that you don't know, but they are new it's because they were not very useful and they were not very necessary, and you can actually keep reading and not needing those words. That would be true as well for the person who's reading Harry Potter. I think that was Doge. Yeah. So that's the situation that, yes, at some point you can infer from context. It depends on how many of those words there are, but if they're just adjectives and you're good enough at grammar to acknowledge that they're adjectives, you can just ignore them all and keep reading. So that's cool. Oh yeah, Doge is answering that in my experience. Yes, that's what I did with English vocabulary for the most part. Oh, so I guess you have a different native language. Please just let me know what your native language is. That'd be fun. Tina is saying, whoa, that is so good. I will check out that video. Thank you so much. Happy to help. Honestly, I made that video because there is no other video that's as good on YouTube. So I made it. But now I struggle to make it be seen by people. It's very challenging to get people to actually see that video, even though it's rather good. So if you can watch it and also share it with other people who need it, please do it. Everyone who can actually see this video will get a lot of benefit, not this video, that video will get a lot of benefit from it. So please feel free to share it when you find it. Shashavi is saying, how to be confident in speaking French. I legit lack confidence. That's why I tend to forget my vocab. Woo, that is a good one. I'm going to write that down because it's honestly complex to answer, but it's a great idea. Let me write it down in my note-taking system. So how to be confident in speaking French. That's a great idea. Thank you. I will definitely make a new live class about this because I've never actually done it so far. There is no, I don't think there's even a video on my channel about the topic of confidence in and of itself. There is an affirmation video about self-confidence with bilingual affirmations, so you can look that up, but it's obviously not as actionable, I would say, as making a class about that. So I'm definitely going to do that. That's a great idea. Linda saying I'm that way, then I forget and I get stuck on time. Yeah, I'm totally gonna make a live class for that. I don't even think that, Linda, please tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's a workshop even about confidence in the French Accelerator. We have one about motivation, but I don't think confidence is one. What you were saying, same here. Okay, probably that's going to be the topic for next week then. Doge is saying, oh yeah, I have a little trick for learning words. I put them on your Windows desktop and you learn them passively. Yes, that could be a possibility. Yeah, that's like the sticky notes technique, which we will speak about soon. Dutch or Néerlandais, cool. Can I provide the link? Is it for that video? I can actually try to find it. Just give me a moment. Give me a moment. Yep, here it is. There you go. That's the video in question. No, we don't have a confidence one. We don't. Yeah. How would you do that? Just have the word and definition as part of the wallpaper. I think they're probably using a Post-it app. There's one which is built into the Apple computers, and for Windows, you can easily download this kind of software. So that's probably how they do it. All right, thank you so much. Looking forward to watch more of your videos. Well, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. There are a bunch of videos on this channel. I make a new 1 hour live every Sunday at this time. So you're welcome to join anytime and to ask, of course, any question that we have. Thank you for the link. Now we just watch it later. Yes, you can do that. And if you know other people who struggle with the genders in French, please do share it with them. That's the best way that I know to learn about the gender of words rapidly. And then I will also give you a little trick later today, which you also have in this. So let's move on because actually I have only gone through the point 1 first. So the second point, which is really critical as well. I know I'm going to say critical a lot, but honestly, first, learn fewer vocabulary and fewer words and identify which words are useful thanks to you hear it or you need it. Second, you need to have one system. This is super important. So I can always recommend several different ways of learning vocabulary. You could have a vocabulary notebook. You could have a flashcard app. You could have Post-its. You could have this and this and this and that. But the thing is, you need one system, and you need all the words that you want to learn to be vetted. That has to be the first thing, and then you need to put them in your one system, and you need to never add more than 10 words a day in your system. So the goal is to have the system be a bottleneck, so that the words then when you learn them, so you will have to review your system every day, right? But you want to have not so many words in the system that you can't learn them. So you need to have as few words as possible. I give the guideline that you never have more than 10 words a day, like never add more than 10 words a day. The goal is that you have enough space and time to put them in your brain. So the system has to be the bottleneck. You have to think, okay, 10 words max. I can only choose the best words, right? So I hope that makes sense. Please tell me if that's clear and if you have any questions. Could you just answer my question earlier? Oh, sorry, I missed this one. My daughter is also learning French, but she has a problem with the pronunciation of the words and it sounds terrible. Could you help us with a video to improve the pronunciation? I actually have a class about that, which is called Mastering French Pronunciation, a course. So I'm going to give you the link. There is a live that I made on a Monday, because back then it was on the Monday, which speaks about that. So you can retrieve that, it already exists. Or if you want, you can just buy the course. So there you go, frenchfluency.net/pronunciation. Yeah, but look into this this channel. There is one of those lives which is about pronunciation, and then the class actually is very in depth about that. All right, so Moa, you were saying that makes sense. So I'm gonna go on. So the number 2 was you need to have one system, not more than one, and you need to never have more than 10 words, never add more than 10 words a day in the system. So that basically that piggybacks off the first one, less words. And that system has to be really like the place where the words don't get to live rent-free into that. The words have to go there and be useful. And then when you review your system every day, then you're sure that you learn all the good words. This is something that you have to do upfront. I know it takes some thinking to just decide whether or not the word is good, but that's really the thing that will make the biggest difference, because then you're sure to learn only the words that are really going to be efficient and that you can actually use in real life. So my number 3 is, okay, so I don't know if you have your worksheet, but basically it has to have one system, never put more than 10 words in your system, and no word lives in your system rent-free. So these are the important keywords here. 3, the most popular system is the vocabulary notebook. So when I started as a French learning coach, and I created my system, the Roadmap to Fluency, which is basically the guidelines that I use for every one of my clients, and that also my courses are built upon, which I can show you really quickly, because when I say Roadmap to Fluency, I like to show it to you. Oops. Totally unprepared today, sorry about that. So when I created this, which is basically the framework that I use, and if you're in the French Accelerator, you know that corresponds to the first 3 workshops of the French Accelerator. And if you're in the French Life Launchpad, every one workshop of the French Life Launchpad, which are the same as the first 3 of the Accelerator, corresponds to one of those pages. And when I created this system, I will always add on the first page, there's always a daily action, which is to review your vocabulary system. When I created this, I was assuming for some reason that there would be half of the people who would be more into using a paper system with a notebook, and half who would be more into using an app on your phone. That was because back then I was married, and my ex-wife is a really big techie person. She's a software developer, and she just loathed everything paper. And I was a very traditional person that was using pen and paper. So I thought, oh, it's like 50-50. But then I made dozens of these, and I spoke to dozens of French learners that I coached as a coach. And I asked them genuinely what is their favorite system. Would they prefer to use a flashcard app, or would they prefer to use a vocabulary notebook, a paper system? And overwhelmingly, the answer was that they would prefer to use a paper system. So of course, you can decide for yourself. But if you're not sure, use a notebook. So it has to be a rather small notebook. I think I have one here, but I'm probably not going to have it because completely unprepared. Sorry, I just upped off my coaching sessions and came on here, and I just don't really have all the props that I wish I had. So I'm just going to show this to you with this notebook. Ideally, you should have a notebook that's smaller than that, because it's better if it can fit in your pocket or in your handbag, or you can maybe keep it in your car, depending. But it's a notebook that you should be able to take with you, because you need to review it when you have 5 minutes free. It's good to review it as a habit. 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening is perfect. But I know that for some people, it's not that easy. So if you can actually carry it around, then you will be able to review your vocabulary when you have 5 minutes. So if you're waiting at a cash desk, for example, or even if you're waiting in a traffic jam, then that's a good moment to review your vocabulary notebook or your vocabulary system, because you could also use a different system. And so the best way to do it is to draw a line in the middle and write the French on one side and the English on the other side, because then you can just cover up one side, like you can cover the English and just review it by guessing the meaning of the French. or you can cover the French and review it by guessing the meaning from the English, right? So I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know and I will try to re-explain it. Just let me know if it makes sense. So yeah, it's good to, like, lots of people would write them in line, but really it's not what you want to do. You want to draw a line in the middle and just be able to cover one side and have all the French on one side and all the English on the other side, or Dutch, or whichever language you learn from. Or if you're a very advanced student, it could be a good idea to have the French word on the one hand and a definition in French on the other hand. Then you can review your vocabulary completely in immersion. So that's also a good way to use it. So that's the first thing. The most popular system is the vocabulary notebook. Please tell me if that makes sense. And if it does, we will move on to the next second most popular system, which I already told you. Connie saying it makes sense to divide the page like that. Yeah, I mean, I made this mistake, like all of these mistakes, I made them myself. I've learned 6 languages, well, I mean, 5, French is my native language, but the other 5 languages I speak, I've learned them myself from scratch all the way to fluency. And I made all of these mistakes. Like every single thing that I tell you not to do, I've done it. So yeah, please don't repeat my mistakes. Or if you have been repeating those mistakes, just stop doing it from now on. So you need to have one system, but if you don't like the vocabulary notebook because maybe you don't want to carry a vocabulary notebook, or you don't like writing, or you would prefer to have something digital, the next favorite system is the flashcard apps. So you need to have an app that you enjoy using. I like Anki and Quizlet. I think they're good options, but there's one caveat, and maybe you're not going to like it. I know some people don't like to hear that. On those apps, often there are pre-made decks that other people have made, which you could theoretically also use. You can just download their decks and learn from the decks that exist. I strongly advise against doing that. You have to make your own deck. You have to choose your own words. Why? Because of all the stuff that I've explained from the beginning on. So if you just joined, I'm sorry, you'll have to go back to listen to the beginning. But basically, we were saying that it's critical to learn as little vocabulary as possible, because you want to not overload your brain. You want to just have a small amount to learn. And of course, if you start by learning the text that's made by another person, then you will have words that are just unnecessary to you, and you don't want that. The second thing is that the words that maybe they made the best deck for themselves, but your life is different and your case is different. So you will have words that are not useful to you, and we will have words that are not, you will miss words that are useful to you. So you cannot use work that's made by someone else. The only exception to that is if you were working one-on-one with me or with another coach that's really tailoring the curriculum to you, and then you would use the notes from our sessions. When I work one-on-one with a client, I always have a Google Docs open during the session, and I write down all the words and all the grammar elements and all the things that we're learning during the session. And then the clients can take away those notes, and then they can write down the words that are important in their system. But it's made personalized for them. It's not the work of someone else that has been made for someone else that they are applying to themselves. If you do that, I mean, you could feel that it's a shortcut, but the thing is, it's more likely to lengthen your way if you try to shortcut by using the work that's been done by someone else with flashcard apps. So I understand that those apps are very attractive, and those decks are really, it sounds like it's cool. Like you have, oh my God, like 500 French words already in there. I don't have to enter them in one by one. It's great if it's the words that you do need. And even then, even if it was the exact same number of words, the fact of entering it yourself already helps having it in your memory, or like putting it in your memory more deeper. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I've convinced you that you need to put in your own words, whether it's in your notebook or in your flashcard app. It's a really bad idea to use something like a phrase book or a vocabulary list that's made by someone else because of those reasons. Right, so I see we have a couple of questions. There is something called sticky notes on Windows 10. Yes, so that was what I was saying about sticky notes software. So yes, you can get that. And that's funny because exactly where I'm at now is number 5, the use of sticky notes. So when I say sticky notes, that can be either paper notes, or that could be those notes that you have on your computer. It doesn't really matter. What I find about sticky notes, and there is actually a video on this channel about how to use sticky notes for French, which I made, 4 years ago? It was one of the very first videos that I made on this channel. It's quite elaborate because I made it with my ex-wife, so she did the editing, and there's lots of it looks really nice. We also review something called Flashsticks, which is, I'm not even sure if it still exists, to be honest, but it was pre-printed sticky notes to learn vocabulary. Again, I wouldn't really recommend using that because it's better to have your own set of notes. So it's not really great as a standalone system because it's not portable. Like you can't carry it around like your flashcard app or your vocabulary notebook. And also it clutters your environment a little bit. So I would really recommend to only use the sticky notes to keep an eye on the things that are the most difficult. So if there are words that you can never remember or a verb conjugation that you can never remember, that is the thing you want to write in a sticky note mirror. And you can just stick it on your bathroom mirror or on your computer desktop if you have it as an app, or next to your home office, that's hard, or next to your bed, or really anywhere where you would see it. So for example, for me, I could very easily like stick notes here to the shelf where I just would see it always. I try to avoid doing this as much as possible because it clutters my environment, but it is a great way if something is important to remember that thing. So that's and also I'm using sticky notes here. Like so, as I was saying, this is part of the French Fluency Starter Kit. It's called Vocabulary Magic. You will get it for free when you sign up for the Starter Kit. So you can sign up for, and also it will sign you up for my email. So you get the worksheet every week on your. You'll get the worksheet every week in your email box, and you also get the entire starter kit where you have the invitation for all these classes and also a bunch of interesting resources like the fluency worksheet, which I show almost every time because this is really the backbone of your French study. If you don't have it, if you don't use it yet, you really should. Unless you have a roadmap made by me, of course, or you have a roadmap that you made in one of my courses. But this one is free, and you'll get it in the starter kit. And you will get also this really nice thing, which I actually just printed this week. It's the first time that I'm showing it on a live class. Before that, it was in the starter kit, but we had actually never spoken about it here. But this thing is really important, especially for the point 6 in this list, which is gather all the important data about the words and write them down together with the word. So here it says, number 6, write all the important data together with the words. Now, maybe that doesn't really make so much sense for you, but wait a second. So you have examples here. I mean, this is really just a cover, but depending on what the word is, the grammatical class of the word, you will have to know different data. So, for example, if your word is a noun, like maison or matin, the important informations are the gender, okay? So I do recommend if you use sticky notes, it's good to have different colors. And if you have it on as an app on your computer, you can adjust the color as much as you want. So you could have blue for male and, masculine, blue for masculine and pink for feminine, or really any gender combination that you like. And when I post on Instagram and I put some French words on my Instagram story, I use blue for masculine and pink for feminine. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, you can follow me. It's @FrenchFluency. I think the link is in the description as well. And when I post my story, I often post also French words alongside the story. For example, today I posted the little family of swans. Actually, that was yesterday. I posted a little family of swans that was having its first bath. And I wrote le premier bain, and I wrote it in blue because it's masculine. So that's a useful way to represent the gender. Most of the time, if it's in your notebook, you can just write the article alongside the word, and then le or la. Or if it starts with a vowel, write un ou une, of course, because if you write L apostrophe, you won't know the difference. But really, yes, you want to write down the gender. This is super important. I think I will probably make an entire class about gender because that's going to be useful. Tell me, please, if you would like to have an entire weekly session about gender and the gender of French words and how to find it and how why is it important and so on and how to learn it. Just tell me if you would be interested in that, because if you're not interested, I'm just not going to do it. Just type it in. Nancy's saying yes. Okay, great. Yeah, I can totally do that. So here also what I did is that I underlined the endings. That's because these endings, aison and un. So un is a masculine ending and aison is a feminine ending. That's one of the things you can learn in the gender video, which I just quoted above, and the link is in the chat above them. So you can learn that from that video, and then you can just underline it when you write down the words, and that will help you know that those are always masculine and feminine. So it's a learning tool. For some special cases of nouns, some nouns have a masculine and a feminine. For example, le coiffeur, la coiffeuse, that means hairdresser, so you could write them both. Or le journal has a irregular plural, so it's a good idea if you know that the word has an irregular plural to write it down. Le journal, les journaux. Al is always forming, is not always, but there are a few exceptions. Al typically has its ending in O, but if you don't know it, then that's a good opportunity to write it down. Okay, Omawale, you're saying yes, I'll be interested. Yes, great, let's do that. So for nouns, write down especially the gender, and if something is irregular like the plural or it has a feminine, you can also write that down. For adjectives, you want to write the masculine and the feminine, especially if it's irregular. So if it's a word like petit, which is regular, you will want to add an E. You will know that the feminine is going to be formed with an E, so that's, you don't need to write it because it's the general rule. But in case it's something irregular or like barely regular, like Italien, Italienne, and it has two N's, that's a good idea to write it down. Or optimal, optimo, this is an irregular plural. That can be important. I'm not gonna go through all of this document because you can download it, it's free. So let's move on. But yeah, for adjectives, you have different things that you want to write. For verbs, we spoke about verbs last week a lot, but really writing down the type is really important. And like I was saying, if one conjugation is difficult, so here we have aller, which is irregular all the time, and that's a good idea to use a sticky note to be able to remember it more easily. And finally, on the last page, we have here phrases. It's going to go along with our point 7 on this list, which is to write chunks, not words alone. So if you think again back at what I said about nouns, I already, le matin or la maison, it's already a chunk, right? It's not just one word, it's a word along with its article. You could go farther and add an adjective, for example. You could say la nouvelle maison, the new house. And then that will help you know that nouvelle is an adjective that ends in E-double-L-E in feminine, even though it's nouveau in masculine, and also that the adjective is placed before, which is not common in French. So by writing chunks, it allows you to really learn a lot more about the words than just the word alone. If you would just write maison and write house, then you wouldn't even know if it's masculine or feminine, you wouldn't know how to use it, and it just, yeah, it would give you some information, but it's not as good as writing something as la nouvelle maison, in which case you will know that it's feminine and you know things about the adjectives. So does that make sense? You can write it on like page, like the link 7 here, so it's write chunks, not words alone. And as an example, you could write, for example, la nouvelle maison. So tell me if this makes sense. Another way that you can learn chunks and that will help you with your vocabulary is if there are things that you might want to use without having to understand them. So the typical example for that is je voudrais. I'm going to type it in. Je voudrais. So je voudrais literally means I would want or I would like. It's something that you can use to be polite in French. So if you go to a cafe, for example, and you want to have a coffee, you could say je voudrais un café. It's a lot more polite than just saying je veux un café. Now, je voudrais is the conditionnel. It's quite a difficult, challenging tense to understand. Like if you go to learn the conditionnel, I mean, it's not even in this first grammar book, it's only in the second one. And if you go there, you have all sorts of extremely complex stuff that I'm not gonna get into, but it's not really worth learning it as a beginner. However, as a beginner, it's really enjoyable to be able to be polite when you ask for a coffee. So write je voudrais, you know it means I would like, and don't bother to learn all the thoughts and how this word is constructed. You can just learn it and use it. I do that all the time with my students that are not very advanced when I'm in a one-on-one session. When a student asks me, okay, how can I say this or how can I say that? I'm like, yeah, if you need to understand all the grammar, it will take you another 2 months to get to the point where you understand all that grammar. But write just this down and learn this chunk. I promise you, it's a life-saving strategy. If you can see a chunk and you know what it means and you know that you can use it, just write the chunk and write what it means just so you remember it and then learn it in this way. And it will save you just a lot of time. And you can actually learn a lot of French this way without realizing it. Most people who do that actually do it without even knowing that they do it. I find that it's often the case for kinesthetic learners. They'll just somehow get the phrase and the meaning, and they won't really know why, but they will be able to learn it and use it. And stuff starts only going wrong when they realize that they don't know why they know it. But actually, in practice, when you're practicing a language, you don't need to know why you know something. And most natives just don't know the grammar, and they don't need to. So it's perfectly okay to write a chunk and write, okay, that means roughly that, and I can use it in this context. It's actually a really, really good shortcut to learn French. And the last way to use chunks is, well, I just kind of spoke about it already, but it's to connect different kinds of words. So for example, here you have phrases. So for example, you know that adjectives, sometimes they have a preposition that goes with it, heureux de. If you just write heureux, which means happy or content, and you don't know that it's de, then you will very likely to say something like heureux avec, because in English it's I'm very happy with this, but in French it's je suis heureux de ça. So you want to write these kind of things. Again, this one is free, so you can just download it. I don't need to tell you everything right now, but this one, just have it. But then you can go one step farther and you can connect some of these words. So for example, you could write a sentence like je suis heureux de comprendre le vocabulaire. And I'm just going to type that as an example. You could write that, and you could write that it means I am happy that I understand the vocabulary, or I am happy to understand the vocabulary. And then you will know that there's heureux de, which is really important, because otherwise you will never guess the preposition if you don't write it down in your notebook and learn it. And then you know that heureux de goes with the infinitive, right? Comprendre. And then if you know really the sentence and how it's built, then you can swap the different parts of the sentence and use this structure later. So that's a really good way to use your vocabulary notebook or any vocabulary system as well. So please tell me if that makes any sense. And we do have another almost 20 minutes left. So I'm glad that I did go through all the points, and I'm happy to open to any questions that you would like to ask. If it's not too complicated, I will answer it right now. And if it's very complicated, I will give you a couple of pointers and I will add it to my list for the upcoming weekly sessions. So please, the floor is yours. You can use the comment section or the chat to ask any questions that you have, and I'm happy to answer them. All right, so Doge is saying, I'm totally like that. I can't even tell the difference between the past simple and present perfect in English. If I think about it, and I can't just say it right intuitively. Yes, this is normal. So you said that you're Dutch, so you actually have learned English, but you have learned to use it naturally, probably because you have had a lot of quote unquote daily English bath. I don't know if I've said daily French bath before, but yeah, like it's because of immersion in the language that your language becomes really good. Like for me, I know that I've decided to only improve my French and my English, as those are the languages that I work with. And I'm happy that my German is just B2, because I don't need a better German. I also don't need better Spanish or Portuguese or Esperanto at this point, even though those are languages that I could have conversations in. If I arrive at a point in my life where either I'm taking a trip or I'm going to some sort of conference and I need to speak those languages, I will just brush them up before the time. But the languages that I'm really interested in improving are French and English, because it's the two languages that I work with, and I just want to know more and more and more and more about those languages. And it becomes intuitive at some point. Like, of course, right now, as I am talking to you, and you know I'm not a native in English, and probably you hear some mistakes, or at least you hear my accent, but it's intuitive for me to use English because I've used it so much, and because I spend so much time listening to English every day and reading English every day and even speaking in English every day. And the same is true for French. Even though it's my native language, it just works the same way. At some point, when you become really good at a language, you might not even know the difference really between what's your native language and what's your second language that you've learned. Like for me, there are entire topics which are a lot easier to speak about in English, just because I'm used to speaking about them in English. Or also sometimes if I'm texting, like in speech, it's not as strong, but in text, English is just shorter than French. It's just how it is. Like you have shorter words in English and it takes less time to type it. So sometimes even when I know that the other person speaks French, I will just write to them in English just because it's faster. I will only write to people in French really if they are learning, and or if it's the language that we just speak together. But most of the time, if I'm trying to be fast, it's easier to actually write in English if I know that the other person is also proficient in English. And we are trying to not just have a friendly conversation, but actually get information across fast. So yeah, it becomes totally intuitive. It's not far-fetched to expect to become intuitive about the French language. I know that if you're a beginner student right now, you'll be like, wow, how am I going to get to the point where I speak French like this guy speaks English? If you work, I don't like the word work, but if you commit to it and you have some French around you all the time and you just keep practicing and keep learning the words that are the most useful, right? And really be selective about what you learn. And don't be that selective about the things that you put in your environment. That the things for your daily French bath, as long as you enjoy them, they're fine, just go for it. But the words that keep coming back and the words you keep needing to speak, those are the ones that have to go in your vocabulary notebook. Also, please remember that you will always, in every language, even in your native language, you will always have more passive vocabulary than active vocabulary. So passive vocabulary means the words that you understand, right? The words you've seen before, you understand them, and if you see them again, you will understand them again, but you don't use them. Active vocabulary means the words that you actually use in speech. There is always more passive vocabulary than active vocabulary. This is normal. This is absolutely normal, and it's the case in your native language. It's the case in every other language that you learn. And it would be irrational to expect that you will eventually be able to use all the words that you've ever seen in French. It does not work this way. Like, I do not use all the words that I can understand in French, and no one does. So it's important to know that there are words that you will understand, and that those words you might have in your daily French bath a lot, and there are words that you will want to use, and those you want to be very selective about them. Okay, so Connie is saying I could actually read that sentence and understand it. Yay me. Yay you. Congratulations. It's not an easy sentence. I mean, je suis heureux de comprendre le vocabulaire. It's already, 2 clauses. Yeah, difficult sentence. Nancy is saying repeat the second most popular. So the second most popular system is the flashcard apps. So the first one was the vocabulary notebook. I showed you the notebook and I explained how to use it with the cut in the middle. The second most popular system is using a flashcard app. I said that Anki or Quizlet are a good example. I didn't type them in. You can download those apps and use them. It's really an application for your phone, and it looks just like a flashcard. So you will see one side, and then you can tap on it to turn the card. So on one side, you will write the French, and on the other side, you write either the English or the French definition or something that will remind you of what it means. So that allows you to review your cards one by one, basically. So you can pull out your phone, open your app, and then it will show you one side of the card, like perhaps with the French, and then you can guess what it means. And then when you're ready, you just tap it, and it will show you the solution, so you know if you're right or wrong. You can use them forward and backward, so you can guess from the French or guess from the English. It's a really nice system that if you enjoy working with electronics things or like a phone or apps, it's good. But I don't recommend having the vocabulary book and the flashcard apps. You have to choose. And it's okay to switch. Like, don't get analysis paralysis of like, oh, I don't know if I want a notebook or an app. It doesn't matter in the end. Just try the one that you think you'd have most affinity with. And if you don't like it, it's okay to switch. In fact, one thing that I haven't actually included here because it's an advanced strategy, but you can also trim your notebook, because at some point, even if you're very careful with the words that you put in your notebook, you will end up having the notebook being too large. And when you want to review it, you won't be able to review everything from the notebook. So when you're at this point, it's okay to just review the end. But also the best thing to do is to take yourself like 1 or 2 hours, sit down, and either take a brand new notebook and only like go through the old notebook and just remove all the words that either you already know or that you have written there by mistake. Like if you have a word in there and you're like, whoa, what's up? Like I don't need this word. Like I've written it, but I've never seen it again. Then that's a word that you have to kick, which was in there by mistake. So then you'll be able to extract only the words that are still useful and that you still know, and you put them into your new notebook. When you do that, you can also actually switch from a notebook to a flashcard app or vice versa. So it's not like it's set in stone. It's okay to switch systems if you find out that you have had a system which you don't love. But do not take more than one system at a time. It is a recipe for disaster. It is a recipe for becoming overwhelmed, for having too many things that you can, and just like, in my experience, I mean, I'm all about efficiency. And as a coach, I can only recommend that you have one system and that you have the most simple system that you can have. So I hope this makes sense. Please let me know if you have any questions about that or about anything like that. Doge is saying, I'm kind of confused about the usage of du coup. It usually seems to mean something like therefore or as a result of, but not always. I think it really means as a result of. I wouldn't really translate it as therefore, but we have donc. Donc is what means therefore, and it looks kind of like du coup. And when people say du coup, it's often very colloquial, and it's really in speech. Like I don't really write du coup unless I'm writing something that's really informal. So yeah, it's true that I do use it a lot. And often when I use it, if I use it in front of a client, even if it's a client that's really very advanced, that already speaks French, they often won't understand it. But yeah, I think it means mostly as a result of. If you have examples of when it does not mean that, that's actually a good idea to bring them here and type them in and just ask me, because I cannot think of an example right now when it means something different. Good job, you deserve this cake, Connie. That's nice. Oh, thank you. Nancy's saying thanks. Connie's saying I love cake. Great. Clarice saying cake is life. You're lucky, Connie. Oh, I'm sure I can give cake for everybody. Wait, I'm actually not sure, but maybe I can. Ah, there you go. Wait, we have 10 people here, so I can give 10 cakes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. Cake for everyone. Peut-être que du coup, certains n'osent pas en parler. Perhaps suddenly. No, honestly, I think traversal is wrong. I hate to put myself in opposition to some online thing, which is, I think this sentence, peut-être que du coup, certains n'osent pas en parler, it refers to something that happened before. Something happened, and then suddenly some parties that do not dare to talk about it. But the reason why they suddenly don't dare to speak about it is because of what happened before. So you would actually need more context from that. So I don't know if reversal context has more context about what happened before, but I cannot imagine that this du coup would be here without being the consequence of something that came before. That does not make sense. And yeah, it's true that it also means suddenly, but it means as a result of, and that result might be sudden. Does that make sense? Yeah, I no, I wouldn't translate du coup as suddenly. I mean, suddenly would be soudain or soudainement. It shouldn't be a plus. It should be a slash. Can I edit this? No. But yeah, suddenly as either soudain or soudainement, it's not du coup. Du coup is the consequence of something else. Merci pour le gâteau. De rien. Oh yeah, Tony, you're right. Tout d'un coup also means suddenly. That's another way of saying it. I mean, often you have a lot of different words, and also in English. I mean, you have suddenly, you have all of a sudden, at once. These kind of connector words, you have a lot of different words that you can use, and so it's the same in French. Right. Hey, I've run out of questions. Do you have anything you'd like me to talk about? Either something that I can answer quickly right now, or if you have ideas for general topics that you would like me to address in those classes, I would be glad to have your ideas. I'm always kind of scraping for ideas. So the next one will probably be about, what did we say, confidence? Yeah, I was thinking of creating a monthly schedule where we would have a general topic for each week, and which would be something like strategy, grammar, etc. I would have to find four. So confidence would be like more of a mindset thing, mindset/strategy. So we can, yeah, that's going to be the topic for next week. So Linda, if you want to, since you're now in charge of writing down the titles, if you want to think about a topic, a title that includes confidence, like how to be confident in French, or I don't know, 7 hacks. I've been very, I enjoyed the idea of having 7 hacks every time, or 7 trips, or 7 strategies. Tell me if you like it. Actually, maybe another number would be better. Like, would it be better with 5 or with 9? Yeah, acquiring specialist vocabulary. I'm wondering if that's a topic that I could make it completely deep, because I mean, it's pretty much like the same things that you've had today, they still apply. Perhaps one thing that would be special is that you will want, when you're a specialist, you will want to use for your daily French bath the kind of content that is specialized to that. So for example, if you're a lawyer, I don't actually remember your profession. Are you a lawyer? Because it says wannabe actuary, so that would make some sense. If you're in the field of law, you will want to listen to maybe low podcasts or low YouTube channels. It's actually one of the most difficult, because the field of law is very, very varied, and it's also very technical. And mostly on YouTube, you'll find only people who are just dumbing it down for people to understand. One thing that I like is to use the Pour les nuls book series. Let me write that down. Pour les nuls. Book series. So, for example, you would have analyst numbers mathematics. So So mathematics, I mean, you definitely have YouTube channels that are about mathematics. There's one YouTube channel that's called MicMath, which I think it's MicMath. I think that's how you spell it. I sometimes watch it. It's a bit complex for me because I'm really a language person. I'm just not at all a math person. But the way he explains it is quite understandable. So if you have general knowledge, it still does work. And if you're a specialist, you should be able to understand that. And yeah, so the book series for dummies, Pour les nuls is the equivalent of For Dummies in English. So often when I recommend to my clients tend to have really good careers in their areas, and whether they're doctors or lawyers or diplomats and so on. And when I'm always a bit self-conscious, I recommend to them to get the book of their topic for dummies because it's a bit insulting. But that's really the point. The point is to have the book where they already know everything about the content. They just don't know the language, because that will be the perfect opportunity to learn the specific words and what they mean. So that's a good idea. If you have a particular topic and there is a Pour les nuls that exists, you can get that book, and that's a good way to acquire a specialist vocabulary. I'll see if I can make a complete class, if I have enough material on advice about that. Maybe that could be useful. Linda is saying I'm a knitter, so I watch YouTube channels on knitting. Yeah, same idea. So even though I'm much more advanced knitter than the channels are made for, they give me the vocabulary. That's the whole point. Avant que tu ne sois parti, what does ne do here? Oh gosh, that's one of my favorite topics. You have to tell me if you want me to speak about that, because I can definitely speak about it for an hour. Okay, so the French language has an order of priority, which is a bit different from what you would expect. Which means that basically the top 3 priorities of the French language, and I always explain that to my clients, and they always laugh when I say that because it sounds so absurd, but it is true. So number 3 is to depict reality, so like to be actually accurate about what we're describing. Okay, so that's not the third priority. Number 2 is to respect the grammar. So if ever the grammar would contradict reality, the grammar would trump reality every time. So the grammar is more important than reality. This is why this bottle is feminine. So la bouteille is feminine, even though we can look at it and I mean, it's pink, right? But it doesn't have a gender like as an object. It's actually not even the object that has a gender. It's the word, right? So words have genders for us, nouns have genders for us. It does not depict any reality, but grammar trumps reality every time. And then there's the last thing, the top priority, which was what we're touching at here with the nothing. The top priority is it has to sound good. I know it's insane. And if you would like me to make a live class about how, like, the rules of French, we call it euphonie. I'm just going to type that, euphonie. That French has to sound good. It's really, like, euphonie literally means good sound. So is the Greek root for good, and phony is for sound, which you have in phonology and lots of English words. It has to sound good. And we have a weird idea of what sounds good. So yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly it. Sound good trumps grammar, trumps reality. And it's hilarious, but it's how it is. Like, that's how we do it. So the ne, we just kind of feel like it could be avant que tu sois parti, and it would actually be correct to say avant que tu sois parti, and it would mean the exact same thing. It would be a bit more, perhaps a bit less high-level French. So if you say avant que tu ne sois parti, it sounds like you are very sophisticated, because it's what we call un ne explétif. That's what they call it in the grammar book, ne explétif. And explétif literally means it's just here to sound good. And it's very unfortunate that it's literally the same word that we have in the negation, because sometimes the exact same sentence could mean the exact opposite of itself. Like in some cases, avant que tu ne sois parti, it could technically mean before you would not be gone. That's weird, because of course, like, you're either gone or not. It's a weird example. But j'ai peur qu'il ne vienne. That would be a typical case. So, j'ai peur qu'il ne vienne versus j'ai peur qu'il ne vienne pas. So typically the negation meaning is carried now by the pas, but originally the ne is the one that carries the meaning of negativity, like the negating the sentence. So when you say j'ai peur qu'il ne vienne, often it means I'm afraid that he come, I'm afraid he will come, but j'ai peur qu'il ne vienne pas, or j'ai peur qu'il ne vienne with the pas omitted, that would mean I'm afraid he will not come. And you have to like guess it from context. Just because j'ai peur qu'il vienne is less sophisticated. And that's how I would say it in colloquial French. I mean, this would be more like of a writing thing, but I would not venture into saying sophisticated stuff unless I'm trying to get some sort of style, because it can be hella confusing. Like this ne is only here because it sounds good. And we have this really weird idea of what sounds good. So yeah, Connie's saying Linda and I were just talking about that the other day. Yeah, they just do it for prettiness. Absolutely. I confess, we only do it for prettiness. It's the order of priority. And I mean, this is going to be like the last thing of today. I'm glad you asked the question. It's some topic that I can absolutely speak about. I'm just totally gonna make a class. So I guess maybe it's gonna be confidence, and then we're gonna have euphony. I'll see if I can make it a cycle. So I'm sure that we don't repeat the same thing. Euphony, I guess it would kind of qualify as grammar. So yeah, I'll think about that. But yeah, that's it. Depict reality, grammar, sound good. 3, 2, 1. That's what it's about. That's the French language. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. It is so weird. Yes, it is weird. And Tony, you're saying diplomacy. I'm not sure what you mean with that. Is it a topic for next time? Atil. Yes, atil is another case. Like this T here, it's only here to sound good, because ail, that would be a connection of two vowels. So we hate that, so we put a T in the middle. Doesn't mean anything. It's just here for prettiness. We do that. Yep. It's like the most French thing ever. All right. So it's been more than an hour that I've been hanging out with you guys. So I'm just gonna let you go. It's time now. But thank you so much for being here with me. I see we have 10 people still on the call. I don't know if it's a record of having that many people at the end, but I'm so glad we moved on to Sunday, because it's definitely clearly easier for you to be here. So it's amazing. I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I will see you next Sunday at the same time. We will speak about how to gain confidence in French. And by the way, if you're in the French Accelerator, please bring yourself onto our Zoom meeting on Wednesday. We're going to speak about the subjunctive, probably a topic that I will never speak about in one of those live classes, because I'm preparing that workshop right now, and I'm like, I cannot understand how it works, but I also understand that it's really hard to explain. So that's what I'm going to do on Wednesday. If you're not in the French Accelerator right now and you have a big need for being live on a workshop with me about the subjunctive, you can still sign up. The link is in the description below. I would love to have you in there. And then in that group, we also have a Facebook group where in that class, of course, I should really go. In that program, French Fluency Accelerator, we also have a Facebook group. So you can also get a hold of me basically at any time during the week. So you don't have to be live on this live class once you're a student of the Accelerator. And you also get first dibs to working one-on-one with me, which I think I will have new slots open soon, probably at the beginning of June. So yep, that's gonna be it. I've been rambling too much. So everyone is saying merci and au revoir. Oh, Linda Garmi is here. Thank you. Nice to see you, Linda. And yeah, I'll see you next Sunday. It's awesome to have you here. À la prochaine fois, à la semaine prochaine. Au revoir, guys. That was a weird mix of French and English. Au revoir, à la prochaine.